Hi everyone, and thank you for taking a look at my learning module this week. This week we're going to be taking a look at the LGBTQ user community in libraries and possibly the improvement of services towards them. So just to give you a brief background, the LGBT activists began visibly advocating for greater representation in 1969. By 1970, there was a task force on gay liberation formed within the American Library Association. It's now known as the GLBT Roundtable, and it's now the oldest LGBTQ professional organization in the United States. By 1980, the Task Force on Gay Liberation released the International Thesaurus of Gay and Lesbian Index Terms. This aimed at standardizing terms used for cataloging gay and lesbian-related library materials and making Library of Congress subject headings friendlier to use by gay and lesbian archives. By 2007, the Rainbow Task Force began within the ALA to promote the presence of LGBTQ juvenile and young adult literature in library collections. So, with this said, it's not always necessarily easy for the LGBTQ community to freely use the library. So, let's take a brief look at the privacy. So, in their 2006 study of the LGBT book circulation, Stephanie Matheson and Jeffrey Hanks found that LGBT titles were more likely to circulate via a self-checkout rather than the traditional circulation desk, which is staffed by a person. This is really seen in one of the articles that I have read for my research, whereas someone who was just coming out of the closet went into the library, they searched the card catalog under homosexuality, at which point they did find material that was written by someone who had come out of the closet themselves. This person was so embarrassed to check this out at the circulation desk that they stood in the stacks and read the material. So privacy is important for the LGBTQ community, as there's still a big fear of ridicule or bullying, even through the public library system or academic library system as well. So how can we better the privacy situation and better service the LGBTQ community? Well, we need to start educating library staff. And what we need to do is we need to start training to work with diverse populations, especially with the LGBTQ patrons. There's also, we also need to work on on collection development policies for the LGBTQ materials. And also, lastly, librarian education to gain familiarity with sources for the LGBTQ communities and materials, including local bookstores and community groups. Jennifer Downey, in her 2005 article in the Journal of Progressive Librarian, states that internal censorship is one potential cause of censorship and lack of LGBTQ materials on the shelf. Also, it's just assumed that LGBTQ patrons will just request the material through interlibrary loan and get the materials they need from other libraries. So that can severely limit the amount of materials the public library or academic library can carry. Moving along, there were some organizations out there that were formed to help better represent the LGBTQ community, users, and professionals who work within the libraries as well. The Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, Transgender Roundtable, the GLBTRT, which is a subdivision of the American Library Association, or ALA. It supports library professionals who identify as LGBTQ and promote access to LGBTQ materials for library users. They also seek to create new classification schemes for the LGBTQ books that do not stigmatize these identities and promote access under the ALA's Code of Ethics and Library Bill of Rights. Attached to this learning module, you will also see the Library Bill of Rights via the ALA website. So the GLBTRT It also administers the yearly Stonewall Book Awards for juvenile and young adults and adult LGBTQ fiction. The next organization that also does the best representation is the Lesbian and Gay Archives Roundtable, which is a group within the Society of American Archives, and this act advocates for the preservation of materials related to the LGBTQ history within the archival profession. And lastly, the last organization I want to mention is the International Federation of Library Associations, LGBTQ users. And what this group is, it's charged to address the gap in professional knowledge of LGBTQ users' needs by offering opportunities to engage in discussions about the invisible user group. It also considers topics of professional attitudes, outreach, and privacy programming. So, with all of that said, it's sometimes very difficult for an LGBTQ user to use the library as far as material that's available, privacy issues, and other things. So what I have done is I've included some discussion questions as well to consider while you're doing some of the readings. The first discussion question is, what are some different ways that libraries can reach out to LGBTQ users? And what kind of programs would you develop as a librarian, whether academic or public librarians? The next question I'm posing for discussion is, you are asked to create a display of recently acquired LGBTQ materials, in which a very conservative patron walks in and informs you that they are offended by the display and that you need to remove it. How would you handle that situation? Pardon me. So these are going to be posted on the discussion board for open discussion, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing your responses to these questions. Also, I've included some readings too, and there's a couple of short ones. There's a lengthier one, so I'm hoping that you enjoy reading those. Also, there was one other thing that I included, which was a timeline of LGBTQ library users and events. So I'm hoping that you find the material I'm posting useful, and I'm looking forward to reading your discussion questions. All right, thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.